Hey, how's it going? So it is your lovable melanated urbanist, and I'm back here with another video. So I'll be honest with you, it's been a little minute. Life kind of just started lifing, man. You know what I mean? So this video is going to be a little bit different, though. I'm actually going to be spending the weekend in a different city, and I'm going to be doing kind of like a case study for this video. So I'm going to be heading to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a city I'm extremely familiar with. It's a city I actually spent a lot of my adolescence in, and so I have a little washed out. The sun is actually shining here in Cleveland for once, so shooting this with all of my studio lights on is kind of weird. But a couple quick facts about Pittsburgh. So, nickname is the Steel City. It was actually founded in 1758 during the French and Indian War, during the American Revolution, and that's around the time when it started becoming colonized. It became its prominence. Well, it came to prominence. Sorry, it came to prominence around the time of the Industrial Revolution because of the mass deposits of coal, iron ore, and which makes, if you mix that with water, which makes steel, and that's actually where you get the name the Steelers from, the football team. Um, it's a decently diverse city. I've actually spent, I want to say, about 12 years in the Pittsburgh area, so it's kind of home to me, but it's kind of sort of is. It's one of the homes I claim. But I'm actually heading back there for a friend's 30th birthday, so I'm going to actually be studying a few things. How livable the city is, which Pittsburgh is a very livable city. How affordable it is, how the housing looks like, how the transportation looks like, how easy it is to get around the city, and other things. And I'll be teaching you a lot of things about the city. And at the end, I'll be giving a ranking of um, livability of the city in terms of urbanism. So without further ado, this is going to be time in Pittsburgh. So I'm here, finally in Pittsburgh. Sorry, I didn't take a video of the journey down because I was on the bus, and I'm pretty sure you guys didn't want to see me cramped up next to some weirdo dude. But I'm at my friend's house. I'm going to be chilling for the night, and then tomorrow we're actually going to be playing some golf. So I'll give you guys a couple shots of that, and I'm going to show you around the city after that. So sweet dreams. All right. Good morning. So I'll hold it with both hands so I can actually be a little more steady. That way. There we go. So it is 5:46 in the morning, and I'm waiting for my friend to get up so we can go golfing. I'm gonna show you guys a couple of videos of me golfing, me sucking, and then I'm gonna show you guys around the city a little bit. And let's see, I think I actually hear a kitty cat, and yes, I do. Let's see if I can get him. Let's see if I can get him. Ah, I'm not the best at doing this. There he is. Hi, kitty. So yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of fun today. Here we go, boys. Breakfast of champions. Got a little, bar, sugar-free Red Bull. We are on for today.
Get them terrorists. But first, watch this drive. That was perfect.
So just got done playing. It's a little rainy at the begin with, and my hair is a mess. Oh well, it is what it is. Just got done playing, and it was a little rainy at the beginning, but it ended out pretty good. Got a little Pittsburgh sunshine, and if you're from here, you know it's a little sun peeking through the clouds. But I'm off to the city next, and I'll see y'all there. So finally on my way into Pittsburgh. Like I said, I'm staying out in the suburbs with my friends. And I'll be walking around the city a little bit, give you a couple facts about the city, and hopefully I can get a really nice shot of us going through the tunnel. So this is prime example on why public transportation really just needs to be better in cities. Um, yes, there's a game today, and there's also the arts festival, and we are stuck in traffic. We've been in traffic for about maybe 5 minutes, but this would be a lot easier if there was a rail line here. I mean, just take you straight into the city. So I'm here in beautiful downtown Pittsburgh. Couple of things about Pittsburgh. It is a Rust Belt city, so during the Industrial Revolution, a lot of people actually moved to the city for jobs in the steel industry. We're actually passing by one of the most famous establishments, Primanti Brothers, or if you're not from Pittsburgh, Primanti Brothers. Um, During the economic downturns of the 80s and the 90s, Pittsburgh did fall on some hard times, but it's really sprung and picked itself back up pretty well. All right, a couple Pittsburgh facts. So the average home price in Pittsburgh is around $331,000, which is pretty good. It's not that bad, actually. The median home price is actually 208, which again is actually not that bad. It's not as high compared to the national average. So it's pretty affordable to buy a house here in Pittsburgh. So the living wage, which if you're living by yourself, is about $22 an hour, which is kind of crazy when you say it, but at the same time, we do live in a time of mass inflation. So, I mean, it's high, but it could be worse. The crime rate in Pittsburgh is actually lower than the national average, which actually makes sense compared to other cities around. And a little bit more demographics, about 62% white, about almost 23% black, 6.5% Asian, and about 3.8% Hispanic or Latino. So diversity wise, it is not as diverse as other cities, but there is diversity that does exist in Pittsburgh. So other cool things about Pittsburgh, I guess we could talk about that a little bit. Housing, like I said, a little more, excuse me, sorry about that, a little more expensive now, but that's also relative to the cost of living nowadays have been rising. It's still a pretty cheap, decent place to live if you're trying to be thrifty, like money conscious. It's still pretty cool city life too. Let me talk a little bit about the nightlife. A lot of the nightlife actually exists on the North Shore by the stadiums, the South Side, and over in a neighborhood called Lawrenceville. Pretty decent nightlife from what I remember. Excuse me. Pretty decent nightlife from what I remember. Getting around, well, if I were to be honest with you, getting around is a little bit different in the city of Pittsburgh. So as you can see, as I'm showing you, the bike infrastructure downtown is really nice. This is actually a raised sidewalk and a protected bike lane here in Pittsburgh. Really, really nice. And this is like this on this whole street. I can actually walk on it like this and be perfectly safe. I can actually walk up, be perfectly safe. And I actually prefer the infrastructure like this. I think Pittsburgh did a really good job with this. The problem is that it's not consistent. So pedestrian and bike infrastructure in Pittsburgh is not consistent. Infrastructure has been a big problem in Pittsburgh to begin with because it's an older city, and not just that it's an older city. Sorry about that. I just ran into another person from Cleveland because I was wearing the Cleveland is a city shirt, which is ironic. I'm wearing the shirt here in Pittsburgh, but I like to cause a little chaos. Anyways, the bike infrastructure downtown is pretty solid, especially here on, I believe I'm on Liberty Avenue. Yes, especially here on Liberty Avenue, but it's just not consistent throughout the entire city. And that does kind of cause a problem because a lot of times you are riding your bike on the streets. And Pittsburgh drivers are not as bad as other cities. They're actually pretty defensive drivers, but it's still not ideal to be in the middle of mixed-use traffic. I do gotta say, though, living here, walkable-wise, Pittsburgh is a very walkable city if you're okay with hills. To be honest with you, it's an extremely walkable city. But Pittsburgh's topography does make it a little more challenging to walk a lot around a lot of the city. Just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about, behind the Fort Pitt Bridge back there, you see that is actually Mount Washington. And I thought about actually climbing it today, but probably another later video when I do a deeper dive in Pittsburgh, I will do that. But yeah, there's a lot of these giant, basically mountains. Well, I call them mountains because that's kind of what they are. There's a lot of them that actually exist here in Pittsburgh, so it's a little harder to get around walking wise, but here downtown, and there's other really walkable neighborhoods here in Pittsburgh that are great. So right now I'm actually in Point State Park. I'm actually gonna walk to the fountain real quick just to show you guys, but yeah, this is actually where the three rivers meets, the Allegheny, Monongahela, and Ohio, all Native American names. So I want to actually show you where the fountain and the point is, so you guys can get a little view of that. You know, sometimes I say that I am blessed and highly favored, because one thing about Pittsburgh, and I knew from living here, is sunny days are very hard to come by. So, got that. Interesting. Sunny days are very hard to come by, so we got a very beautiful sunny day here in Pittsburgh. So normally the fountain's on, which ruins my picturesque video, but this is actually where the three rivers meet. So behind me is actually the, let me get my finger out of the camera. Behind me is actually where the Ohio is formed by the Monongahela and the, see if I can do it, Allegheny. And behind me from there is actually the city, as you can see. So as you can tell, there's a lot of people actually out. I mean, like I said, I lived here, so finding days to come out in the sunshine is very sparse. But they do exist here in Pittsburgh. Sorry, my hand is very shaky. But they do exist here in Pittsburgh. One thing I did notice about just living here or just being around here is the amount of people who spend a lot of time in the flat areas of Pittsburgh. Like I said, Pittsburgh is a very mountainous type of city. It actually sits in Appalachia. It's actually the biggest city in Appalachia, believe it or not. And it's very hilly, very mountainous. There's a lot of like different areas where it's just very the terrain is a little bit different, so that does cause a lot of problems for a lot of certain things. So urban planning, let's talk a little bit about it. Let's talk about public transportation. So Pittsburgh's public transportation is known as the Pittsburgh Regional Transit, and it's a pretty well-run organization. I'm not just saying that because I know the person who is the CEO of Pittsburgh Regional Transit, but it's pretty well ran in terms of their bus system. Their bus system is actually honestly one of the best in the nation that is not a college town, because it does connect you to a lot of different areas. Pittsburgh's bus system is very convoluted, but at the same time it works very well. Like, there are always multiple buses running through neighborhoods. The buses do run on time. My only complaint is that they don't run that late. I mean, we do have 24-hour buses in Cleveland. I wish they did the same in Pittsburgh, but I digress. But they're efficient. They run on time. They are very efficient. And yeah, they connect a lot of different neighborhoods, especially mass neighborhoods that have a mass population. So Pittsburgh is a city that is very condensed. So it's an older city. Much like your Bostons or Philadelphia's or Baltimore's, Pittsburgh was built that actually predate a lot of the car. Cleveland was too, but Cleveland was easily bulldozed because it's a lot more spread out. Pittsburgh, it was a lot harder to do so. So as you can actually see behind me is actually the connector to the highway, and the highway system in Pittsburgh is a lot different than other cities. So just like any other city that was bulldozed for the car in the 50s and the 60s, Pittsburgh does have highways that run through the city, but the exits on the highways are a lot more, well, not spread out. They're actually a lot more close together because of all the neighborhoods. Pittsburgh also actually has 90 neighborhoods. But to get back to the public transit side of transportation, let this person go through. So one thing that Pittsburgh does well is their bus system. It connects you to pretty much anywhere. One thing that Pittsburgh does get wrong, sorry, is their rail system. So one thing that Pittsburgh does get right is their bus system. They get that right very well. One thing that Pittsburgh does get wrong is their rail system. Pittsburgh's rail system is, how do I put this? It doesn't really connect much. It just connects north to south. Yes, it connects neighborhoods and streetcar suburbs, but doesn't connect east to west. And one big one, there is no connection from Pittsburgh Rail to the airport. Alrighty, since I'm on the other side of the bridge, and it's funny because if I would have showed you guys me walking across that bridge, you guys would be like, you're insane. I'd be like, well, everyone does it. So now that I'm on the other side of the bridge and I'm about to walk down the stairs, hopefully you guys can hear me. I really should have brought my microphone with me. Here we go. Now as I'm walking down the stairs and holding on for dear life on the side of the stairs. There we go. It is interesting because since there is no rail connection via the train, there's no real way to get there unless you're Ubering, or you can take the bus, but it takes a lot longer. Now you can see my face. So since there's no rail connection to the airport, the only way you can get there is by Ubering or, well, taking the bus, and it takes a lot longer to get to your plane. I know for a fact part of it is PRT's fault, but a lot of it is not. So Pittsburgh, as an industrial city, was kind of known for exporting a lot of stuff. So whether it was the rivers that are next to me or the railroad, and that is also next to me, a lot of the rails are actually owned by private companies. So let's talk a little bit about housing. So, like I said, I told you how much it is to own a house. When I lived here, and this was like around COVID time, it was pretty cheap. Now, I also rented to a slumlord, and I was on the west side, but it was pretty cheap. It was around like $900 for a single family house, 3-4 bedrooms. Now, a lot of houses in Pittsburgh are, well, made not just to last because they're old mill houses, but they're made to house a lot of people. So the city's housing has actually been doing pretty well. It's very affordable housing here. Like I said, low cost of living. I'm actually walking across the bridge right now, which is really cool. So pretty solid. It's definitely needs some upgrades. Obviously, just like any other city, its zoning laws aren't the best. There is a lot of like single family housing here, but there also is a lot of like townhouses, row houses, duplexes. It was made more for the utilitarian of working in the mills. I think the biggest drawback is not a lot of the housing is kept up on in Pittsburgh. So some of the houses are like old, dilapidated, should be out of commission, but building new or housing is, well, expensive because, you know, a lot of the zoning codes. and a lot of the housing in Pittsburgh, well, not all of it, but a lot of it is not really kept up on, so it's a lot of old stuff. So Pittsburgh's transportation system is not just buses and rail, it also involves inclines. So the inclines were made in the 1800s during the middle of the Industrial Revolution to move, well, workers from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. One thing that's common I actually do love around here is that a lot of people actually walk to sporting events because all the stadiums are located centrally downtown. You know, not out in the middle of the suburbs. You know, like they're trying to build a Brown Stadium in Brook Park. Don't do that. One big problem that Pittsburgh, I know for a fact, has with housing is that, well, it is a hotbed for gentrification. With the really low cost of living to live and how easily walkable and accessible the city is, it's actually a hotbed for a lot of people who, well, want to gentrify the area. So, I apologize. I use two hands. So, a lot of people are getting pushed out of the city, which is kind of bad. So, a big problem with that is that people are being pushed out and there's just no place for them to go. I mean, they find places in the suburbs, cool, but there's not the same amenities that they will get in the city. So I'm back in Cleveland, and I've actually been back for a while. I'm kind of filming this a little bit late because I had to go straight to my real person's job and work 9 days straight. So here we are. So my takeaways from Pittsburgh, my pros. It is a very affordable city comparatively to the rest of the East Coast, and Pittsburgh does kind of fall in that weird line of like East Coast and Midwest, but it's a very affordable city. If you're okay with taking the bus, it's easy to get around public transportation wise. The bus system is actually probably one of the best in the country. It's kind of funny because I'm more of a rail person, but I do gotta admit, the bus is pretty much king in Pittsburgh. Very affordable city, like I said before, for housing wise, getting around transit wise, it's easy if you're riding the bus. Biking, it's pretty decent. I will be touching on that in a second, but it's fairly decent. Pittsburgh is decently walkable too. It's not like the most walkable city because of the terrain, but it's decently walkable though. So it's especially if you're like in a central city or like you're in a low-lying area, like Pittsburgh's pretty walkable. Um, my cons, because I have to talk about it. Pittsburgh is a city that is going up in income. It is getting less expensive to live there comparatively to the rest of the Midwest, and is getting closer to its its brother city. Well, it's not really a brother city, but city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, when it comes to terms of housing. Let's see, cons, transit. Look, I get it. It's hard to build it, but there's no direct rail line to the airport. That's literally should have been the first thing built. It is not PRT's fault now, but they should be looking into that because, well, I live here in Cleveland and I can get to the airport from my apartment in 15 minutes. And another thing is bikeability in Pittsburgh. Well, taking away the terrain, there is a lot of mixed use traffic. Now, Pittsburgh is an older city, so the streets are smaller, so you're less likely to get murdered on your bicycle. But the possibility is still there that you may get murdered on your bicycle. So, my overall analysis about Pittsburgh is it's a pretty cool city. I would give it like a B plus, maybe an A minus. City to live in if you're looking for a good urbanist lifestyle. You can live pretty car light or car free in Pittsburgh and be okay with it, especially if you live in certain neighborhoods. I didn't get much time to spend around in the neighborhoods. Now, part of it is because I've been to all the neighborhoods before and I'm kind of just jaded on that. But the other part of it is I was there for other functions and I had to, like put my time and effort into that. With that being said, my biggest worry is that Pittsburgh has been quickly gentrified, which makes sense because it's a cheap old Rust Belt city. But what the problem with that is a lot of corporate entities have come into Pittsburgh to buy up a lot of the property. So I'm gonna do a whole spiel about this actually. Look, I am a person that believes that we should be investing into our neighborhoods and making our cities and neighborhoods better. But whenever you take out the soul of a neighborhood and you in place and plant actually more of like a soulless corporate shell into it, it doesn't feel authentic. And it also takes away, not just take away the houses from the people who live there, but takes away a lot of the character of the neighborhood. I will definitely concede the point that like what other options do we have to fix this problem? Don't worry, I will be talking about that. But I'm also going to be honest and say that what we're doing now is not fruitful. And Pittsburgh is a prime example of that, where yes, we have cool neighborhoods, but we're also building luxury apartments in these cool neighborhoods where no one can really afford. It's kind of a pay to play system. My biggest fear with Pittsburgh is that it's going to basically become that and more. And as Pittsburgh is growing in popularity because it is a cheaper city relative to the East Coast. When it comes compared to the Midwest, it's a little more expensive, and it's more on the side of Chicago, but you're also getting less in Chicago. One of my big takeaways about Pittsburgh is just from being a person from Pittsburgh, I know that there is definitely like a social disconnect, which is cool but not cool at the same time. It's cool because Pittsburgh is a unicorn city. It's not East Coast, it's not Midwest. It's this weird hybrid between the both, and Appalachia is basically its backbone. So it's like a mixture of the South, a mixture of the North, and a mixture of the Midwest, which is cool, but you also don't have like the you don't have a lot of the cultural tie-ins. So like for example, like I live in Cleveland, which is in the orbit of Detroit and Chicago, and a lot of the Midwesternisms kind of run together, especially like all the way out through Minnesota. I'm originally from Philly, so that's the East Coast corridor. So New York, Philly, Boston, Baltimore, even DC are kind of all like they're not the same city, but they all run in that same pattern. Like even when I lived in South Florida, like a lot of the South Florida cities were kind of like similar in culture, and they kind of kept each other in check that kind of way. Pittsburgh's a little bit different where like I will be honest with you from living there, basically sports is kind of the only culture they really have. A lot of the culture is very Eastern European outside of sports, which is cool. Amazing actually. I love pierogies. I love, halushki, but it also seems to be a little more that's pretty much it. It kind of seems to be a little more, like a little less dense than that. It's pretty much it, which there's nothing wrong with obviously Eastern European culture. I mean, we have Slavic Village here in Cleveland, and obviously I love pierogies and I love Eastern European culture. But it seems like that's pretty much the extent of Pittsburgh's culture, which is kind of sad because Pittsburgh has a lot of other entities and cultures that are involved in Pittsburgh, but they don't really they're not really showcased as much, which is crazy because Pittsburgh also has a giant Asian population that actually sits over by the universities. Pittsburgh also has a not huge but decent black population. And a lot of it was because of the industrialization of the steel mills. But since the steel mills left, they kind of just basically just have one historic culture, and that's pretty much it. And again, there's nothing wrong with Eastern European culture. I love Eastern European culture. It just seems that Pittsburgh just seems to focus on that a lot more than other cities. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that like they were the last remnants of the old time of Pittsburgh. And there are neighborhoods like Polish Hill, which are great, and there are a lot of neighborhoods like Bloomfield, which is not Eastern European, but they're like, but it's more of that old timey steel mill vibe. And to be honest with you, I feel like that's to me is the real Pittsburgh culture, and I feel like that's kind of going away. Now, if you know me personally, I like to make fun of the Pittsburgh accent because it's terrible. It's awful. But I feel like that was a very strong part of the culture because it was a hodgepodge. It was a mix of a lot of different like European and a lot of immigrants, voices mixed together to make one voice. And yeah, it sounds kind of clunky and kind of cheesy, if I'm being honest with you, but it was authentically Pittsburgh. A lot of that is kind of going away. So I think my biggest fear about if you were to move to Pittsburgh, you're not going to get the authentic Yenzer experience in about like 20 years from now, which you're probably going to get it now, but you're not going to get it as authentic as you would if it's like if it was 20 years prior, like in the 2000s. But that's just kind of the way that cities go. Like some things change, some things stay the same. I do hope that Pittsburgh does keep a lot of its culture, like that built the city, like keep the Eastern European influence going because I love it. Keep a lot of the Barbarian influences going because I love it too. But I do believe that Pittsburgh is moving towards more of a you know quasi corporate style culture, which you'll see in a lot of like Sunbelt cities. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that Pittsburgh is a very cheap city to live in. So that's my takeaway, and I will be doing more videos of like this. Sorry for the late video upload. I'll be honest with you, I have to work my other adult job, and unless you guys are forking in money on Patreon or sending me money directly, I gotta keep doing that. So the videos are gonna keep coming. They're just gonna be a lot more sparse. So I do apologize about that. If you do enjoy, please like and subscribe and share the video because I will be reading comments. I will be seeing the shares, likes, and all that stuff like that. And I will be doing more cities. I'm actually going to Orlando this November for Warp Tour, which I'm very excited about. And I will be going back to South Florida too. So I'll be in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area too. So I'll be doing a video on that. And obviously I'll be doing a video on Cleveland next year. I'm hoping I can do more cities. I'm hoping I can do Atlanta. I'm hoping I can do Detroit. And I'm hoping I can do San Francisco, Oakland. So, make sure you like and subscribe and support. Anyways, y'all stay blessed. Thank you.